record. There we go. Hello, my name is Rhonda Jones. I am the MESSA Health Promotion Consultant. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Today's session, we have Deb Timmerman. She's back to talk about HeartMath. But first, I wanted to share some information about what MESSA Wellness can do for you and your school district. As the MESSA Health Promotion Consultant, I can help you in your school district, your educational institution, or even your association create a worksite wellness program. Worksite wellness program is a way to create a culture that supports a wellness for your colleagues, your coworkers. And that would be things like fitness campaigns or educational material on stress management, or perhaps promoting a cooking contest, a healthy cooking contest. All those different things that help bring awareness to what we need to do to be healthy, to help educate us on the information that helps us reduce risk factors for illness and chronic disease, and even things that help us practice those behaviors during the workday. You know, so often we hear about how we need to get healthy, but during the workday, it becomes a difficult task, especially if there's no policy or there's nothing built into our work culture. So this is a way you can do that at your work site. And we've been doing it a year and a half now virtually. So we've proved that you can do it brick and mortar, or you can do it virtually, and I can come and help you. I can meet with you or your team virtually, or if I can come to your school and we can talk about some things that you can do. And I also want to remind you about some of MESSA's health and wellness benefits that can help you in your worksite wellness program, or you as an individual MESSA member. These are benefits we have for you. Often when I work with wellness teams, they help me disseminate this information, because, you know, MESSA doesn't, we don't advertise, we don't do commercials or billboards. So the way we get information out about our wellness products are through our worksite wellness programs, or through the members, or you attending things like this. You hear about it and you go back and share it with your colleagues. So we do have a tool, a platform called My Stress Tools, available for all our MESSA members. Log into the MESSA portal. As soon as you log in, you'll see a drop down in My Stress Tools. Just go right into that platform and take the stress profiler. This is a great profile, great platform to learn about different techniques for building resilience and managing your stress. We just brought this on this year in March. And it's a great platform. You can do webinars, there are articles you can read, podcasts, and different information from global wellness experts to talk about building resilience and how we can manage stress. Also, I just want to remind you about your MESSA benefit for mental health visits, or just doctor visits online. If you don't want to sit in a doctor's office and you have a non-urgent situation, or urgent situation that doesn't require an emergency room visit, you can use our online doctor visit, like sinus infection, perhaps a cold that's bothering you, and even a bladder infection, a pink eye, things like that. You can use the online doctor visits for. And there are mental health visits, so you can see a psychologist, a counselor, and a therapist virtually to make things easier for you. So I just wanted to remind you of that. Are there any questions? I want to bring, can I get a, yes, you can, Melissa. Put your email in the chat and I'll send you that. I'm going to stop my share, and I want to introduce you Deb Timmerman. She's a registered nurse. You know, I love registered nurses. We stick together. She has lots of initials behind her name. I'll let her tell you about those. She is the Chief Resilience Officer for Deb Timmerman and Associates. It's a company helping people prepare for, recover from, and adapt in the face of stress, challenge, or adversity. We need her in our lives, don't we? Deb is a registered nurse. She specializes in tools and strategies to calm the nervous system, reduce energy drain. Has anybody experienced how stress can make you tired? discern and connect with the body's innate healing potential and help people discover the secrets to a calmer, more peaceful life. She has met the requirements of education, training, experience to achieve designation of diplomat through the American Institute of Stress and holds certifications in mindfulness, meditation education, I'm sorry, you guys, Tai Chi, synergies. She's a synergy certified stress mastery educator and a heart math certified teacher. I won't delay anymore, Deb. Let me bring you up. I'm tongue-tied with this and let you tell us more about, and actually this is heart math too. We did the first session last year. If you're interested in seeing that, go to our website, MESSA.org, our YouTube channel, and you can check out that first session with heart math. Thank you, Deb.
Well, thank you so much, Rhonda. So all of those designations really came because in nursing, you have to have 25 CEUs every 2 years. And I just kept accumulating them. And I've been doing this a long time, like 20 years. So, like you're leading teams of teachers and working with teams within your district. I did that in my buildings for nurses and interdisciplinary teams. And like you, we got all kinds of people that came to our organization that brought their own issues along with our people who came to work. And sometimes we were living in stress soup. So I don't know what your day has been like, but if you were on the first call with us, I taught the basic heart math breathing technique called heart focused breathing. So we all come from different places this morning. Perhaps you're on lunch. I'm going to lead us through 1 minute of heart focused breathing just to remind you of what that technique is and so that you can feel the power of this wonderful breath work. So the instructions are simple. You can close your eyes if you want to, but you don't have to. I often do this on the fly and no one has any idea I'm doing it. But you simply focus your attention in the area of your heart and imagine that your breath is flowing in and out of your heart or chest area, breathing a little slower and a little deeper. So you'll hear a chime when 1 minute is up, and I'll talk you through this. So focus your attention in the area of your heart and imagine that your breath is flowing in and out of your heart or chest area, just breathing a little slower and a little deeper than usual. Find whatever rhythm is comfortable for you. And if you're having trouble settling, counting to 5 on the inhale and 5 on the exhale can help you set that pace. So we're looking for heart focus and heart breath. Sometimes it helps when you first start to learn this method of breathing to put your hand on your heart and just focus that breath and imagine it's flowing in and out of your hand, center of your chest, simply breathing a little slower and a little deeper than usual. That was 1 minute. I don't know about you, but for me, that minute goes by really quickly and really helps me to get and connect to my body and to stop that automatic stress release of chemicals. And we'll talk a lot about that today. So, we know that there's a big problem, right? We know that the last year and a half or however long it's been now there has been a lot of change and that many of us have weathered well, some of us not so much. And the reason for that is stress and our emotional well-being is very subjective. And it really depends on our feelings of contentment and our life satisfaction and our ability, despite the problems and challenges and all the crazy things that happen in our life, to find that center again and to really learn from that and hopefully adapt using coping mechanisms that are healthy for us instead of the ones that aren't so healthy. So we know that people under stress have a 50% higher mortality rate. And it's really important that we focus on this now, probably more than ever, because we're seeing such a rise with burnout among the working population because of all the losses and the disruption in our calendars and where we're working and how we're working, and just generally the amount of change that we've had to endure and respond to. So, how does this show up, and what has everyone experienced? Maybe you've had some of these things too. On the left side of the screen, you'll see the things that impact us personally and that we tend to have lots of physical tension. Sometimes we get those run on negative thoughts, little tiny things that aren't really catastrophic become catastrophic. We start to blame others, we start to shame others. We sometimes feel disconnected from our values. We have a difficult time making clear choices. Sometimes we take on this victimhood, like all these things happen around me because I don't have any control in this. And stress can make us feel like we don't have any control. And then that carries over to both our family relationships, and then those things carry over to our business and team relationships as well. And if we're running a district or we have a team, we can have lots of employee health issues, retention problems, and generally we see personal productivity and optimal performance suffer, right? Because we're in this time of ongoing crazy change and ongoing stressors. So, what do we do about this, and why is this such an issue? So I love this stress, resilience, and performance diagram. This is an old study that comes from combat times back in World War II. They studied soldiers and looked for how many days there would be before they would see breakdown in their body or their mental performance. And what we know about stress is we all need a little bit of stress to help us sharpen the axe, right? So when we take on a challenge or we're starting something new, we usually are really juiced up by that. And that initial boost of adrenaline helps us embrace those challenges, and it really actually improves our performance. And then we find that we have this maximum period of efficiency. So we can all do some of these things for a little while, right? But then over time, you'll notice that that red line starts to decrease because we get to the point where we are beyond our maximum period of efficiency. And that's called the hyperreactive stage. So that's the stage when everything starts to bug us, things get under our skin. And if we don't do something about that to decrease those energy drains that we have, we hit the emotional exhaustion stage. So we can all look back on the pandemic and probably identify that we were in one of these points, maybe not once, twice, but several times, or with different things and different problems that happened. And here's the deal. The pandemic lasted months, and it's still going on, really, because we're now looking at Delta variant and all of the other things that happened. This was 60 days. So the idea here is that we can improve our resilience and improve our performance if we intervene and do some things to help us keep our inner battery fully charged and to help keep our energy levels up. So my question to you is, where are you on that stress, resilience, and performance scale? Are you at the end where you're emotionally exhausted? Feel free to type that in the chat, and then we'll stop in a couple of minutes and just kind of look at where we are as a group. And it is not uncommon that many people are in that burnout stage. It's just kind of where we are. So the idea of this whole piece is to start shifting our thinking and develop an understanding of our own stress indicators.
Yeah. Hold on one second. Can
Yep.
everybody see the presentation? You can put in the chat or unmute yourself. Let me know. Is anybody having trouble seeing the screen?
Can you see it, Rhonda?
I can see it.
Okay.
Just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Okay.
Good. Okay. So the idea is to develop that knowledge of that body of knowledge where You understand what your stress indicators are. You know your physical clues, and many of us feel them every day, but we don't pay a lot of attention to them. And also the emotional clues. When we are stuck in big emotions, not that we shouldn't process them, but when we stay in those places of fear and anger and anxiety for a long period of time, that's very wearing on our internal battery. And then shifting our thinking by training a new stress lens. So, all of us interpret the things that are going on around us based on our previous experiences, and oftentimes shaped by the different traumas or not so great experiences that we've had in our life. And our brain's job is to help keep us safe. It's constantly scanning what's going on in the environment and trying to give us that adrenaline juice to help get us out of what it perceives to be an emergency situation. But we all know that big emotions are not typically an emergency situation, are they? Those things that come up every day that fester under. Maybe somebody didn't come to work, or your babysitter didn't show up, or you had to wait in line, or you were in traffic. All those things are wearing on our internal batteries. And when we don't do something to help us carry the stress load differently, stress is cumulative and compounding and leads to all of those lifestyle diseases that Rhonda talked about, diabetes and heart disease and all of that, because we're under stress chemicals, and we know that those really over time deplete our energy reserves. They're not good for our immune system, and they actually harm us rather than help us as they're designed to do. So, using heart math science, we can change those patterns that happen within our brain and change the neural signals that go from our heart to our brain. And we can shift from energy draining to energy renewing. Now, for most people, that's a different concept, but this is how it works. Our feelings and emotions generate predictable heart rate variability patterns. And I'll show you the slide in a minute, but when we're in that space of fear, frustration, those patterns cause the neural signals that go from the heart to the brain to be transmitted differently, kind of in what I would call a herky jerky pattern. So it influences our perception, and it influences the emotional experience we have and our ability to self regulate. So when we can identify those feelings, we can shift those neural patterns and add a renewing emotion, and that changes the way the brain gets that information, keeps our energy reserves, helps us communicate much more clearly, and access to our higher thinking centers. So our prefrontal cortex is increased, and it really helps us overall with the students we work with our teams. We're not as tired during the day, so when we go home, we have energy left over to give our family. So it all sounds good, right? But how easy is it to do? It's really simple material, but I'll be honest, having a practice, just like what Rhonda said, is really the key to developing those new habits and to changing that. So, this is a good place to stop and kind of talk about any questions about what I've already introduced, and to kind of touch base and see where you guys are on the spectrum. Are you in burnout, or are you still, where are you? How are you feeling? So, if you haven't typed it in the chat, please do so. And if you have any questions so far, you can throw that in the chat as well. And for those of you who are not comfortable, you know you can private message. That's okay. We're here to create a safe space and to give you tools to switch that. So I'm getting a number of direct messages that say burnout. Yeah, it's real. And so some of what we feel when we're burned out are that um, we don't have any energy in our to do our activities of daily living. Those are the things that kind of sometimes are our own worst enemy too, because instead of getting out and exercising and doing some of the things we enjoy, we don't make those choices and we kind of get stuck in that space. Thank you for sharing those. Lots. So I won't divulge names at all, but I'll share some of what I have here. Been in burnout, but slowly coming down. Burnout, 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 burnout. Off for the summer, end of last semester, truly felt burned out, stressed out with life, didn't realize I was in burnout until after vacation, depends on the day, stuck, thought about retiring. Yeah, I think these are all very real feelings. And it's wonderful that MESSA offers the worksite wellness program and the stress management tools. I would highly advise you to take advantage of those and really trying to get in there and do something at least once or twice a week and helping to break that pattern. But what I'm going to give you today is something that you can use on the fly, just like we just did that 1 minute of heart focused breathing. Okay, so this is how it all works. You'll notice at the top of the screen, there are two gas tanks, if you will. On the left side, it says recharge, and that's where the arrow's pointing. And on the right side, it says charged. So we're energetic beings. We wake up in the morning and we have a full tank of gas, hopefully. Some of us not so much, especially if we're in that cycle of burnout where we're not sleeping well. We may wake up where our gas tank is already on low, or maybe we just can't even get out of bed and we need a recharge. So when we look at the horizontal axis, you'll notice on the left side, where under the tab that says depleting emotions, there's cortisol. On the right side, under renewing emotions, there's DHEA. So when we have a stress response, the first thing that happens is our our bodies activate the sympathetic nervous system, and we get adrenaline, and that gives us that boost in heart rate and the ability to get out of that situation that's dangerous, that our brain perceives as dangerous. Whether that is an emotion or real danger, those chemicals are the same. And time after time during the day, when we have multiple times that we're having those jolts of adrenaline, then the second part of our stress axis kicks in and it gives out cortisol. So, cortisol is that thing that increases inflammation because that's the thing that causes wear and tear on our body. So, it's at the end of the spectrum where if those things are going on all the time, we usually have high levels of cortisol in our body, high levels of adrenaline. On the other side, it's DHEA. They counteract each other. So DHEA is found in a youth hormone, and we secrete that in our bodies as a natural hormone response. When we are in the space of depleting emotions, things like frustration or anger, we call those high heart rate emotions because those are the things that we're always juiced up about and our heart rate increases, or whether we're in low heart rate responses where more of our parasympathetic nervous system is activated. That's all around cortisol and adrenaline. Whereas if we can shift to a more renewing emotion, like with gratitude or appreciation or ease or calm or contentment, we can actually influence our body's biology, get that DHEA going, and it puts us into a place that I call nervous system neutral. So our nervous system needs to work together. Sympathetic is the gas, parasympathetic is the brake, and they work in harmony with each other. But what happens with all the stress that's happening is we get a sympathetic response, whether that's high heart rate or low, where we're getting cortisol and adrenaline. And maybe 20 minutes later, we're getting another one. And 20 minutes later, we're getting another one. And pretty soon, we are in that space of cortisol and adrenaline soup. So if we can learn to feel those things in our body and the drains that come with it and make a different choice, we can actually recharge our body on the fly and stop that wear and tear and that body breakdown. Does that make sense to everyone? Any questions about this? I see one in the chat. Okay, thumbs up. All right. Oops, there's another one. Okay. So I would just ask you to think about now for a moment, where are you spending most of your day? Are you in the space of frustration, anger, fear, burnout, all the other things that come with that? Or are you in the space of more renewing emotions? Where are you living most of your day? Because if you are in that space of depleting emotions, you are going to drain your energy reserves. That's a fact. Lots of research around that. The trick is that our brain tries to protect us, and it takes a lot of work to stop these. And I mean a lot of work, meaning that you got to tune in and you actually have to make the choice to do something different. But it's very doable. And the benefits happen pretty quickly, and people feel better fast, really fast. So lots of good things being shared in the chat. I start each day with renewing emotions, but more often than not, I end up depleted. Depleted sector, depleting, bottom left. So many of us, I think that it's not just somebody who's being here, it is where most of us as workers are today, because of the amount of change and the amount of stuff we are just all going through. So there's nothing to be embarrassed about or feel like you do things worse than someone else. This is just your biology trying to protect yourself. So it's an automatic response. So here's what we know about heart rhythms, and I mentioned a little of this before. When we have a feeling like fear, frustration, we're in what's called an incoherent heart pattern, and that herky-jerky messaging to our brain actually affects our physical and mental performance because it influences our brain centers involved in foresight, decision making, social awareness, and regulation. So on the right of the screen where you see the thalamus, that's actually something, the part of the brain that synthesizes and synchronizes cortical activity. But right in that same area is the amygdala, and that's our fear center. That's what gets the stress response going because it thinks it tries to protect us. So when we're able to shift those heart or those emotions to a more renewing place, we actually increase function because that information that goes to the brain is much smoother and the brain perceives it differently. So really simple concept. Incoherent inhibits brain function. When we're in a coherent space, coherence facilitates brain function. And for the definition in HeartMath, coherence is getting our heart, our biology, and our brain and our hormones all synchronized and on the same wavelength. And we do that using these heart focused breaths and adding positive emotions and attitudes. Really simple. So here's how this works. If we're all day long, if we are having constant drains in our energy bucket, feelings of fear, frustration, um, gosh, you can name a lot of them, right? There's tons. Anxiety, depression, too much physical overwhelm. Our bucket gets holes and we drain them back. Or another analogy would be a cell phone battery. We all run to plug our cell batteries in when we're getting on yellow, don't we? But do we do that to ourselves? Not really. So some of us have good practices in the morning, but we need to do that throughout the day. So here's the three keys to interrupting pandemic fatigue and stress. First, we have to start to see stress as information. So when we feel stress, that's really feedback to us that it's time to service our engine. So many times we don't pay attention, we stuff that down, we carry around more physical um, overload, and we start to have those symptoms. But when we use that to know that we need to make a change, we can actually change our biology from that left side of the grid to the right side of the grid. And we do that by doing stress care in the moment. So making a conscious choice to shift those patterns and process those emotions and then shift out of it. Not in the moment, not when you get to it. So not at the end of the day when work is done, but during the day, a minute here, a minute there. We all eat, we all go to the bathroom, hopefully. In nursing, that was always the joke. We never ate and we never went to the bathroom. But hopefully, there are times during your day that you can do this. And you can increase the strength of that resilience muscle by prepping in the morning and then resetting throughout the day so that you don't have a dead battery when you go home to your family and you have more energy and more vitality and more strength to get through your day. Another way to think about this is that you're widening your window of tolerance so that the stress stuff that happens doesn't trip your switch and get you into that stress state as quickly or as often. So I'll tell you my little stress story here. I was always running on high gear, multiple project, multiple everything. And inside my head, because the stress hormones were flowing, I was always thinking that I wasn't good enough or didn't have the skills to do what I needed to do. So I'd spend a lot of time second guessing, and I'd go home absolutely from nursing exhausted. And sometimes that exhaustion would mean I would eat dinner and I would go to bed and I would sleep not so well, but till the next morning. And I just didn't have clarity. My brain was really foggy. I probably said things that triggered more stress for myself because I just wasn't in that space where I could regulate my emotions in the way that I can now. And I think like after I started using these tools, it was a couple weeks after my husband said to me, "You didn't do heart math today, did you?" And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because you're not acting the same. You're not as patient. You're not as kind. You're not as calm." And what I noticed was on my commute into the city, I would be swearing like a trucker in my car at the traffic. And when I first started to notice that my brain wasn't as reactive, I would happen on the highway going, "Oh, you didn't have a meltdown. It's good." So I knew there was something to this and kept practicing. And as I practiced more, my stress, what it takes to get stressed is a lot more than what it used to be. So widening that window of tolerance, building up that resilience muscle. So one of the things that I love to do, and this is a technique I'm going to teach you today, and I'm going to actually send a handout on this that Rhonda will include with the follow-up email. It's called attitude breathing. So it's about checking in where you are in your attitudes when you get up in the morning and really using that unwanted feeling, identifying a replacement feeling and attitude, and then using that heart math breathing tool to get yourself prepped and ready for the day, and then doing attitude checks or spot checks throughout the day so that you can get back into balance as quickly as you notice that you're out of balance. So I'd like for all of you to think about an unwanted attitude that you had today, or maybe yesterday. Maybe you're in a good place today, whether that was just feeling physical stress in your body, or you were anxious or lonely, whatever that is, and then identify a replacement feeling that you can breathe in. Everybody follow me? Okay. So this is really simple. You recognize that feeling or attitude that you want to change. You identify the replacement attitude. You do the breathing. So focus your attention in the area of the heart. Imagine your breath is flowing in and out of your heart or chest, breathing a little slower or deeper, and then breathe in the feeling of that new attitude, just really slowly and really casually through your heart area. So I'd like to lead you through that, and I'd like to do it for 3 minutes, not just one, because sometimes when you're in your own environment and you've got other things going on, it takes just a hot minute for you to get into that space. So as before, I'll guide you through this. You can use the screen if you want to. And at some point, I'll be quiet and just give you the cues of heart focus, heart breath, new attitude, and then you'll simply breathe in whatever you choose. Okay? So here we go. I'm going to start the timer for 3 minutes. Recognizing that feeling or attitude that you want to change and identifying that replacement attitude. And now focusing your attention in the area of your heart. Just imagining your breath is flowing in and out of your heart or chest. Just breathing a little slower and a little deeper than usual. So heart focus and heart breath. You can close your eyes if you want to. You can leave them open. You can put your hand on your heart. Whatever helps you to focus your attention in the area of your heart. And just imagine that your breath is flowing in and out of your heart or chest. Breathing a little slower and a little deeper than usual. So heart focus, heart breath. Now as you breathe a little slower and a little deeper, breathe in that feeling of the new attitude you chose. Very slowly, very casually through your heart area. Whatever that was, ease, gratitude, compassion. Any positive emotion will help. So heart focus, heart breath, breathing in that new attitude. Heart focus, heart breath, breathing in the feeling of that new attitude. So, how was that? Did you find that easy or challenging? Refocusing, yes. And the more that you practice, the easier it is to get that focus. Any new skill takes a little while. And even if you only did heart focused breathing, you still influence that biology and you're still able to turn off those chemicals. When you add that attitude or positive emotion, it's like turning up the dial. And I had a really hard time when I first started to do this because we're taught to belly breathe, right? And belly breathing is great, it's all wonderful. But the difference is when we look at belly breathing, we're activating the sympathetic nervous system, more like relaxing, and with heart um, using through breathing through the heart space, it's really about alignment. So really more nervous system neutral, the equivalent of pressing Control Alt Delete on your computer and lining up all of your body systems so they work better together and you increase that brain communication. So I will add for that email, I have a 1 minute heart focused breathing audio. It's a simple audio. And it helped me to listen to an audio when I first did this because it's different. So we want to go back to what we know and what's easy. So we tend to breathe in the belly. So I would just encourage you to put your hand on your heart, keep practicing that, and you'll notice that when you practice, you will start, your body wants to go to that space. You'll start to breathe that way. Make sense? Okay. Any questions about this so far? Okay. So let's talk about prepping and resetting. When do you prep? In the morning when you get up. Many people have a morning practice. It's my favorite time of the day to make sure everything is on track. I usually do heart focused breathing and do an attitude check in the morning when I do meditation. So it's part of the other thing that I do. Um, Before you go to work, sometimes you're out in the car and maybe you've had a stressful commute. You need to reset before you go in and meet your coworkers and your students. Before, after, before, during, and after difficult conversations. So where do we go with conversations when we have a big emotion come up? Usually our brain shuts down, we can't find our words, and we start spewing our emotions on the person that we're speaking with. And that doesn't always go well for us, does it? So, transitioning tasks. So, if you are teaching in the classroom, you could build these in with your kids very easily so that this becomes part of your day, not only for you, but helping them prep and reset as well. So, and then again, anytime that you start to feel tension, you notice stress, you have those big emotions or attitudes that are starting to drain. So, resetting when you notice, even if you're not, maybe it happens and 10 minutes later, you still notice that you're having all this tension. That's okay. As soon as you notice it, get yourself back on track and do a reset. And a reset can be heart focused breathing. You can use the attitude. In the first session, I taught inner ease, and that's simply breathing in ease or focusing on a place that makes you feel ease. So, again, being able to add that emotional feeling that you can go to in the moment with that heart focused breath that will help shift that. So, does this feel like something you could do during the day with some practice that you could work into your day? So, Kim says putting a timer on to remind herself. That's a great idea. So, you can set up your little timer like I did with my bell for 1, 2, 3 minutes. And I would also encourage you to just think about before you sit down to eat, maybe taking 30 seconds to get yourself into that calm space. Your digestion will be better. You'll be more mindful about what you're putting in your body. So, there are ways that you can integrate this into things you're already doing. I never make heart math something else I have to do. I always make it part of what I'm doing during the day so that it becomes, we want it to be habit, right? Because our brain is always going to default to what it knows. So being able to take that time to reset and get everything in alignment is fab. So Betty says, I think I could definitely use this throughout the day. I also appreciate the info about the difference in aligning parasympathetic, calming, and activating. Good. So think about that. So I'll also send a blank paper for that grid so that you can think about and track where you are. Maybe try doing these exercises for a week and just see if you're spending as much time in burnout. You can change this activity in your brain in 4 to 6 weeks of consistent practice. Now that doesn't mean that you have to go all in and it has to be all consuming for your day. 5 minutes a day, a couple times a day is super, super, super beneficial. So any other questions? You can either type them in the chat, or if you feel comfortable, you can come off mute and ask your question in person. I'm totally okay with that.
I have a question. Can you go over the parasympathetic sympathetic activation of the breathing? I believe I may have disengaged a bit, but I believe you said something about the abdominal breathing actually engages the sympathetic nervous system, or it balances the two out.
So when we think about a calming activity, we're engaging the parasympathetic.
Mm-hmm.
When we do belly breathing, that's what we're doing. We're taking that edge off and we're activating parasympathetic. Maybe you notice that when you do belly breathing for a long time during yoga, you might yawn or you might have a discharge of energy. Um, scratch your head, or I yawn a lot. But with this, the difference is more that we're getting things lined up, not that we're actually activate the parasympathetic, but it's more like we get everything on the same page working better together than in the relaxed mode. So what that allows is that we can be really calm, but we can be really alert. So this is a course that is used in Navy SEALs, in military, police and fire, because we don't want them to be relaxed, right? We want them to be able to think clearly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the difference. And that's what allows us to save that energy. When I do belly breathing, I love doing meditation. But when I do that before I go to bed because I'm ready to downshift for the day. And that brings that on for me. Is that helpful?
That's helpful. Now, what would be the opposite of that? Regular chest breathing, or does that engage the sympathetic more than the parasympathetic?
So think about sympathetic and parasympathetic as opposite.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that we want them to be easy and in tandem. When we get a jolt of adrenaline, Typically that activates the parasympathetic and it will take us to high heart rate.
Mm-hmm.
When we get into the place of depleting emotions, that's more sympathetic activation with low heart rate. Okay.
Great information. Thank you.
Yeah. When we do alignment, it's about getting them to get back online together versus one part of the nervous system being more influential than the other.
Excellent.
Other questions?
I don't see anything in the chat, and no one has offered to unmute themselves and offer a question. This was great information. Thank you. I always learn something new. And yes, this is a direct link to the Heart Math 1. You can find that at MESSA.org, the recording of Deb sharing that information, as well as if you are interested in the handout she gave with that, let me know. I can still send that to you.
Yep.
We love Deb. We love bringing her. She's in Michigan. So if you have a school district that you want to bring her to, perhaps reach out to her. She has her information she's sharing on the screen now. I believe she's offering virtual sessions, and she provides great information, and your group would love her. And yes, I'll be sending out the handouts. I will be sending out the handout. Thank you.
I'll send those over.
Okay. And thank you, Deb. We definitely will meet again in this space, okay? I will
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll be getting in touch with you for the next session. Thank you, everybody, for spending your lunch with us. Our next session is August, the first Wednesday in August. We have Dr. Seward coming back, and we're talking about coping with change in the workplace. Right before you get ready for school to return, we'll have Dr. Seward in this space, and he's going to share some of his wisdom. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day.